We've also heard it from our clients. Your employees just care a little bit more. They follow up regularly. They check in. They make sure. They make the extra phone call. Our projects are measured in months and years and sometimes even decades for them to become fully realized.
Every time you say employee, you say employee owners. And I can't tell you how many leaders say, I just wish our people would think like an owner.
There's another great secret that I keep is that I've never had a job interview. Met with the company, and here I am 34 years later, still at that company.
Welcome to Leadership Backstage, the podcast that exposes the raw truths behind leadership. We dive deep into blind spots, failures, and bold moves, questioning the myths leaders cling to and challenging you to think differently. Each episode brings unfiltered stories from CEOs, executives, and thought leaders who fought through scaling pains, culture clashes, and high-stakes decisions. This is where courage, clarity, and breakthrough thinking collide, sparking insights that actually matter. Here's your host, Claudia Williams.
Welcome to today's episode of Leadership Backstage, where we go behind the curtain of leadership to focus on blind spots and breakthroughs. Really privileged and happy to be joined by today's guest. He is the president and CEO of an engineering services firm. Before that, he came from a small town, went to college, and because of a conversation with one professor, he was one of 5 students in his class to graduate with a job. He really is focused on his community and doing great work for the communities where his company lives and works. And he has a lot of really fun hobbies. So today we're going to dive into his journey as a leader in his company, the only place he's ever worked since he graduated from college. We're going to talk about the talent it means for how we shape engineering services in the future, trends, people, relationships, and struggles. Really glad to welcome Jason Fralick to the podcast. Thanks for joining me, Jason.
Thanks, Claudia. Thanks for wanting to come behind the curtain with me. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's a privilege. Like I said, I want to jump right in to first, just tell us a little bit. You are the F in HRG. So tell us what HRG is. Tell us a little bit of the history of the firm, Herbert, Rowland, and Grubick.
That's a little inside joke that I share with a few people, but I guess now it's out in the open for your listeners. I've been with the firm for 33 years. HRG is a consulting civil engineering firm. The types of projects that we do are generally boring to a lot of people. If the stuff that we design and oversee in the construction process gets built right, it's boring. It just all works. It's your road to work in the morning. It's your water that comes out of your spigot when you go to brush your teeth in the morning. It's all those things that we somewhat take for granted in our life, but they're critically important. And as the infrastructure in our country ages, it just becomes all that more important that we're maintaining those systems, that we're aware of any risks that can affect those systems. And, you know, they're pretty important to the quality of our everyday life. And
the firm has grown exponentially, really. So you have how many people, and tell us all the locations of the firm.
Sure. We have right now a little over 400 people, and they are spread out across Pennsylvania. We have, I believe, 11 offices now in Pennsylvania and one outside of PA, just down the road in Morgantown, West Virginia.
And a desire to continue to grow and expand?
Yeah, that's really important to us. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the ESOP. Yeah. But growth is a critical component of our ownership culture at HRG, and providing new opportunities means we're always looking for ways to grow both in our services as well as geographically.
Okay, let's jump into that ownership culture. Your people are employee owners, and you talk a lot about what it means to be an employee owner of HRG. So tell us what an ESOP is, and why did HRG move to become 100% ESOP?
So the acronym ESOP first and foremost, stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. So our company utilized the ESOP as a way to start the transition of ownership from the original founder and senior executives in the firm into a long-term sustainable ownership model that would allow all of the people that are contributing to the success and the growth of the company to benefit from, some of those advantages of having, skin in the game, as you might say. So it's a program that I think was maybe not well understood a decade or more ago when HRG first became an ESOP, but I think it's becoming more and more attractive, particularly as people in the baby boomer generation are starting to leave companies that they've started and founded and grown over the years. And I think it really speaks to the former leadership of HRG thinking in the long term to be able to preserve that great culture that we have here, but also to really reward and recognize the people that had helped to contribute to that success along the way. And it's sustainable. It allows us to continue to grow and add more people into that program.
Yeah, it's one of the things, when we have founder entrepreneurial businesses and those founders hit a certain stage, it can be a struggle in terms of what succession looks like, what an ownership succession plan looks like for a business. And this happens a lot in professional services businesses. It happens a lot in mid-market companies. And ESOP is one of the ways to ensure continuity of the business, to ensure a transition plan. And it drives recruitment and engagement, employee engagement. So how has HRG been able to educate people on what the ESOP culture means to them?
You really hit the important word. It is all about education. Right from the beginning, just talking about what that means to us as an employer and as an organization, talking to a prospective employee about what it might mean to them in terms of their benefits. Admittedly, some of our benefits might look a little different. We might distribute the proceeds from the business, if you will, in a slightly different way than some other companies might be, where it's just simply a cash bonus type situation. We're really looking to provide opportunities for people to build wealth, maybe even use the term generational wealth as an ownership type of investment. So we start right from the beginning, right from the interview process. We talk about it with our candidates. A lot of people are curious about it. They may know a little bit about it. Maybe somebody that they talked to prior to the interview mentioned it. So it always creates interest. And from there on, we just have a constant drumbeat, if you will, of messaging throughout the year. We recognize what it means to be an employee-owned company. Every spring, we have big events around the organization. We call it our Employee Owner Day. We get together, we learn, collaborate with each other, we celebrate, do fun stuff. Next year will be an all-company event, so we're already starting to plan for May of 2026, which is really exciting to start to think about. But throughout the year, we have a very active internal group, our ESOP Advisory Committee, which is a group of employee owners who kind of stepped forward, answered the call to serve in a different way. So they get some additional education from our leadership team and from outside sources to help them better communicate what employee owners can expect and what's expected of them to be part of this organization. I think the words that always come to mind for me in an employee-owned business is accountability, right? Accountability, we can push it down, the whole way into the organization. And I think one of the ways that became front and center to me was back during the pandemic when, everything went sideways. All of our business had previously happened in office locations, people sitting in buildings together, working on projects. All of a sudden, we had to send everybody home and just hope that it was going to work. And that was very reassuring to know that core value really of business stewardship that we talk about with our employee owners really showed itself. People were showing up, making sure that they were getting their work done, staying in communication with our clients, and really just demonstrating what it means to be an owner, not just an employee.
And for me, you nailed it. Every time you say employee, you say employee owners. And I can't tell you how many leaders say, I just wish our people would think like an owner. And in an ESOP, they're an owner. And when you refer to them as what they are, owners, how better to reinforce what's at stake for them. Do great work, to work great with each other, to serve your clients.
That's very true. I wasn't even aware of that at one point. It certainly is intentional, but I've had a number of people new to the organization say, do you always say employee owners? And I said, yes, I do, because it's important to us. It helps to tell the story of who we are. And more recently, I think as that employee owner mindset has matured at HRG, we've also heard it from our clients. They notice.
Wow.
They'll say to us things like, your employees just care a little bit more. They follow up regularly. They check in. They make sure. They make the extra phone call. And those are all things to me that really are demonstrating that ownership mindset in action. That's
awesome. Let's talk about your journey as an employee owner of HRG.
Yeah, so, it's a long one. That's a long history, Claudia.
Yeah, you've been with HRG for how many years?
Coming up on 34 years. Obviously,
feels like an anomaly. Yeah, right. You started when you were 5. Feels like an anomaly today for someone to say, I've been with a company for over 30 years. It feels like it's going to get harder and harder to hear that. Tell the story of how you landed at HRG.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny story. It really date stamps the story when I tell it. But I was a junior in college, and I approached a professor that I had a good relationship and asked if he would be able to help me to find firms in the Harrisburg area that I could apply for an internship. His suggestion was to bring him a copy of the Yellow Pages, and he would direct me to firms in the area that he recognized or that he knew. So he did just that. I brought a copy of the Yellow Pages into his office. He wrote names of people that he knew at those companies, and I reached out to all of them. And the one that I heard back from was HRG. So I'm excited. At least I heard back from HRG. Didn't know anything about them when I wrote them the letter, other than my professor knew somebody at the company back in 1991, I guess it would have been. So I got a call. I went into their office, which is still one of our offices today, and thought I was going to have an interview. And they basically said, oh, this is great. When can you start? When do you get home from school over your holiday breaks? And these are some of the things that we think that we'll have you do. So there's another great secret that I keep, is that I've never had a job interview. Went,
wild,
met with the company, and here I am 34 years later, still at that company.
I'm hearing, first of all, I hope my own kids and every young adult that listens to this hears how important it is to go have a conversation with their teachers, their professors, it's their parents, friends. I don't care who it is, but go ask who they know, who they can make an introduction to, a connection to. I'm working with young adults right now and trying to get them to do this. And they're so hesitant, afraid, this reaching out, asking people. There's a fear in doing that, but it works. And it's been working for decades, right? So this professor connects you to HRG, and it speaks to me about the value of relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's also been a thread throughout your professional and personal journey.
It certainly has. Kind of fast forward to today, and I usually at about the 6-month stage, I'll sit down with all the new employees that have come in that time frame to HRG. We call it just coffee. So it's a Friday morning, very casual, virtual meeting. And after everybody introduces themselves, the first thing I say to those employees is that if you don't remember anything else about our conversation this morning, the best advice that I can give you as somebody that's been here for a long time is build your network inside of the company. There's a lot of very smart, very talented, very dedicated people who are going to be so eager to help you along the way. That's what I've found. That's what I continue to find when I meet people inside of the company. And I just stress that. But certainly beyond that, you can't do these things alone. It's impossible for us all to build those relationships on our own. And sometimes just having a place to get started, which is really all I was asking for, is just point me in the right direction so that I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting somebody else's time. These are the types of things that I'm interested in doing in my career. Can you help me to understand? And it was as basic as, let's look at the phone book and determine what might be some good opportunities for you to check out.
The 1991 equivalent of let's go through our LinkedIn contacts.
Absolutely.
Our LinkedIn connections.
Yes.
So I want to balance this because you're also one of the more introverted people I've gotten to know, right? You're a quiet, gentle giant of a leader, Jason, and you take in the information. You're really purposeful. You're not absorbing the room with what you have. You're not controlling the room with what you have to say. You're really purposeful about what you say and when you say it. And how did you do it? How did you go on a leadership journey? Because I think there are a lot of people who are a little bit more introverted who think leadership isn't for me. I can't possibly lead others. I'll just sit in my space and do my thing.
Yeah, as you were saying that, a lot of different things come to mind, and you've gotten to know me. You know that I can often be very reflective on certain things.
You're a pensive person.
Yes, you're right. And I think, kind of that you said that sort of leading from the back. My earliest memories come from a very tall family. In fact, I think I'm the shortest male on my dad's side of the family. I have aunts and cousins that are much taller than me. And I can just always remember my grandfather. We would always sit in the back, right, at church or wherever it was like, you're tall, stay in the back, right? Still participating, right? Still, my grandfather was an educator, World War II vet, always involved in things, not the most outgoing person, not the person that, you might immediately see if you walked into a room full of people, but somebody that people would gravitate to, very solid, very consistent. Those are some of my earliest memories of what leadership looks like. Mm-hmm. So, forward that, as you start to grow both physically and experience wise, I always took active roles, whether it was a team, whether it was a school organization, throughout my academic career, getting involved in different things. And I've always felt if you're going to get involved in something, then you really should take a leadership interest in it. And I'm comfortable, certainly just being a contributor. In fact, sometimes I'll come home and say, I just want to help. I just want to move boxes for 8 hours. I don't want to have to be the guy that decides where the boxes go necessarily. Just tell me what you need and I'll get it done. But
relate to that too, because when we are the ones driving all the time, it's really nice to have someone else plan the vacation.
Great example.
All right. I love to sit back and have someone else plan a vacation and I can just show up when I'm planning and driving everything else. But go ahead. So keep going.
Yeah. So how do you bring that forward? I think you attract, particularly in a career like engineering, you tend to draw in a lot of people that are very thoughtful, highly contemplative folks that really like to take a lot of time to process and maybe aren't always the most outgoing that you're going to find, but they're smart, right? And they want data and they want to see information that is, being utilized to make decisions. But they also, like everyone, they want to see confidence. They want to see some vulnerability in the people that are making those types of decisions. They want to know that you're real, that you've experienced this, that it's not just something that you read a tweet or you read a short article and that, all of a sudden now this is the way it's going to go. So I think working in industry like consulting engineering, you have a lot of really intelligent people. And I think one of the things that I've learned is that they really appreciate when what you're sharing with them, whether it's an idea, whether it's a decision, whether it's a new strategy, that it's based in data. It's based in information that's been tested, that it's been vetted. There's a certain way of delivering a project. We have a very systematic approach to how we go about our projects. And people inside of our organization want to see those same kinds of practices used in how we run the business. So working with my team now, those are the types of things that we're working on to try to take that next step with our organization as we grow, to be able, data driven and utilize that information in a way that people can understand it, but maybe more importantly, they can communicate it to others, right? So it's kind of evangelizing what we're doing in a systematic, very steady. You'll hear me talk a lot about consistency, just how we show up, keep delivering the messages, and be patient for people to process that on their own time, but keep them moving in the direction that we want to go.
So what did you have to overcome in being a leader? What's hard for you when it comes to leadership?
There are several things. I think anybody that's being totally forthcoming is going to tell you there's days where you just feel like either you don't have the juice, or maybe you're not the right person to do something. I'm trying to think of a good recent example that might illustrate that. There have been times where I've been overly confident about something, maybe even a little too much, and started to push ahead, and only to kind of realize it's one of those moments where you turn and you look back and nobody's back there, or they're so far. And sometimes I have to catch myself and say, is this just not a good idea? Am I going too fast? Do people not support what we're doing? Or do they just not understand? They're not ready yet. They're still processing. So I think that more often than not, when I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable in those situations where the easy reaction is just to say, are people questioning my ability to lead? More often than not, it's because they're still trying to figure out, I wasn't clear. I didn't give them what they needed for that next step to become obvious or to click. So those emotions, I think, are the things that can really get the best of you at times. And so I try to manage those situations, make sure that I'm in a good, really well paired, but also relaxed when I'm going to have some of those more challenging types of conversations, whether it's something that's exciting to me or something that I think is going to be, really important for the company. There's still an emotional tie to it, whether it's something that I've developed on my own or work collaboratively with the team to develop. There's ownership in that, right? So you really want people to find the good in that, to be, immediate adopters of whatever it is that you're going to put out. But there's so many sources of information. People are being bombarded on a daily basis. And I try to remind myself that many times I've been working on something for weeks, if not months. And the first time I put it out there into the HRG world, people might be looking at like, where did this come from? What's this about? And so I think that's probably the area that's been a real learning curve for me, when, this idea that leaders, let's go, you just kind of get out there and either you're pulling or you're pushing people in a direction. But I think the times when it works best, you're kind of putting your arms on their shoulders and saying, come with me. I want to tell you a story. I want to show you how we can make this better.
Yeah, I appreciate that you can have it all figured out in your head because you've been thinking about it for so long. The people who are hearing it for the first time, we kind of forget that they're hearing it for the first time. And we have to kind of go back 6 months and take them on the journey we already went to catch them up.
Yeah.
To sort of, it's like we're going fishing again. We have to figure out who's on the line and who needs to catch up to the bait.
Yeah, very true.
What about, this, you're the first, when I say you're the F in HRG, or this, this joke that you're the F in HRG, you're the first president of the company who's not one of the kind of the OGs. And that was a big transition. And the company, you've been a change agent at HRG. How was that transition for you? What was it like to be that person stepping into those shoes and making that transition with and for the organization?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. Well, maybe it was not always obvious or intentional to me or others. I think that the way my predecessors went about developing leadership skills and other people in the organization really set me up for success. As I started to go along and think about different things, different times in my career, working in different markets, geographically, working in different areas of service with different types of clients, really helped me to understand HRG's business, both from an opportunistic standpoint, but also from the challenges. It allowed me to really practice working with people with different ideas, different approaches on how we should be providing our services to our clients. And while that was not always a smooth, very well-defined path, I think that it really shaped my experiences and some of my peers as we started to, transition into the next stage of leadership. So I'll give a lot of credit to my predecessor, to some others that were very supportive and mentoring along the way. But I believe that having sort of the timing of the ESOP, keep coming back to that thread. I think that's a really important component of this. It changes, right? As a founder, I think people understand in a business that is founder-led, founder-driven, those people have completely different pressures. Their name's on the door. Usually, literally, their name might be on the door. And my responsibilities, I think, are different. It's governance, it's education, it's supportive. I serve the company in this capacity is a different way of looking at it. And that's the way I've approached it, particularly since I transitioned into the president role, was one of service.
Okay, my insider knowledge says, yes, you've served and you're a visionary. You have worked really hard to HRG for continued and future success. So the desired growth and being really purposeful about organizational redesign and structure and how challenging and difficult that is. When you have a longstanding company that's used to doing things a certain way, and now you're creating a new structure to enable scaling, that was a daunting process.
It was. And I always kind of chuckle because when you say a word like visionary, I picture some like really
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, just, one of these iconic types of corporate leaders. And I never think of myself at all in any of that kind of way. But just being able to see a few steps ahead, I think, is really important. And giving yourself the time to do that. That is the hard work, I think, that people don't understand, is that you can't just be go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, you're going to wear everybody else out, and they're just not going to be able to subscribe to that. But the hard work is the thinking multiple steps ahead of where you are now and where you're trying to get the organization to go. And the bigger the organization gets, the harder it is to move it incrementally in those small steps. But one of the things that we did that I think was really kind of critical coming out of what I always refer to as the dark days of the pandemic in 2021, said, we have a lot of things that are just kind of known but unwritten. We take a long-term view on things. We're not always in it for the quick win. We play, but let's put down some things that we think are important. Let's put a timeline to it. So we published, as part of a strategic planning cycle, we published a long-term vision. We called it our 2030 vision. And we just put some kind of big aspirational types of statements together, put them into a few buckets that helped organize it and make sense, and started to talk about what those things mean to the organization, whether it's on the daily, how we're reflecting those, as we link it back to strategy, why we're doing the things that we're doing or why we're talking about these things right now, but fully aware that these may be unattainable, but this is the direction that we're trying to move. And being able to refer back to that document, it's a neat little image with some graphics and just very succinct types of statements that talk about the kind of organization that we want to be. I think that for any leader that's trying to say, how do I get everybody else to see what this is? I know for me, I'm a visual learner. I've got to see things. I've got to be able to make notes in the margin and ask questions about certain things. So that was a really important step, I think, in my, growing into this leadership role, was to listen to others, ask others for help, and, shape something that people can start to rally around.
I really like that. I like how you're describing the vision and differentiating it from objectives, and that, the vision is something we're striving for. It's a kind of the guiding light of the work we're doing, our purpose. And then you have really purposeful annual strategic planning to set objectives and to define the strategies and the actions to achieve those objectives. But the backdrop of that process is the vision, and is this advancing us toward the vision. So I love that there's this big, hairy, audacious thing, and each year you look at it and say, this is the direction we're heading, and are these things advancing us in that direction? It's really purposeful.
It is. And I think it kind of reflects what we do at HRG as engineers and planners. The things that we do don't happen overnight. Our projects are measured in months and years, and sometimes even decades for them to become fully realized. So we talk about planning on horizons. So we've got our long-term planning. It's out there in that 8 to 10 year kind of space, but it's also has that aspirational element to it. Our strategic planning, it's heavily data and analytical driven, what we're trying to accomplish. Those are smaller windows. Those are 3 years out. Those are things that, we're working on and we're trying to set in motion, if not now, soon, right? We're doing that work. And then we do annual operation planning, which ties back to budget. It ties back to how we recruit employees, how we're going to distribute our profits. Are we reinvesting in certain areas? Are we trying to grow certain markets, whether that's geographically or through services? So I think that it all starts with that vision, and then you just bring it down in each planning horizon to what we're doing. What are the tactics that we're doing to try to keep making those incremental movements?
Okay, so you talked about having the time to think, and I'd like to explore how you have time to think. What's your advice for other presidents, CEOs, your own executive team? What do leaders need to do to have the time to think and work on the business instead of execution, instead of getting stuff done that needs to get done? So how do you do it?
Well, I'm pretty selfish when it comes to my calendar. I'll start there. So I spend a lot of time setting up my calendar to maintain some of those times where I know that I need to do some of that deep thinking kind of work. A lot of times for me, deep thinking means I just need to write things. I need to get some ideas on paper, whether it's a bulleted list, whether it's a kind of cryptic infographic type of thing, but I need to see things on paper in order for myself to really think about them and think about them critically. Sometimes I'll do that with somebody else on my team, just in the form of a whiteboarding session where it's not just completely freelance, but there's a goal, coming out of that, just like any other meeting or any other activity that you would put on your calendar. I'm getting better at saying no to certain things, or saying, I don't really think I need to be involved in that. I think you've got that. You guys don't need me for that.
No,
for
your
that
delegation.
Yeah. And I think it also, it empowers those folks to also take that approach, right? If they see it being demonstrated, it kind of gives them that same liberty to be able to make that decision for themselves. And to your point about sharing that with others in the organization, I'm known for looking at other people's calendars and saying, looks like you need to set aside some time. Your calendar's pretty full. It's hard to, find time.
Like that kind of calendar surfing, the surfing to teach people to release time instead of taking someone's time. I love that. And I know you used the word selfish, that you're selfish with your calendar. I'm going to push back on that and say there's nothing selfish about that. That's actually how you should approach your time. Oh, look, there's my dog stretching in the back. That's how you should be approaching your time. It is your calendar, your time. You own it. You're responsible for it. And there's nothing selfish about that.
Yeah, I said that in a way that was...
You said it, and that's what people feel.
They do.
People feel that way. They feel like, I can't say no. If someone needs my time, I need to give them my time. And what we need to be is really discerning about the time and how much time we can give time. How much time are we giving, and for what purpose? And is there a sort of a methodology? Like, I love how you have the coffee conversations, and that's a way to be giving of time without giving up all of your time.
Yeah, one of the things that HRG operates in a truly very flexible workplace. And again, going back to employee ownership and accountability, I think we give our employees a lot of ability to self-guide their way through their work week and through their work day. And I have gotten better at being very regimented with what am I doing when I'm out in the HRG footprint, out at one of our offices, out at an employee owner event, then I'm available. Then my main job is to be available and
accessible,
to be part of that event. If I take a day where it's a work from home day, it's heads down. I'm not as available or not as accessible. And those are the days then I need to be accountable to make sure that I'm using that time to work on those things, whether it's those deep thinking types of activities. When is it time to move those goalposts back a little bit farther? Is our vision far enough out? Do we have to go a little farther? What are the tweaks that we might need to make to what we had originally put out there so that we can get where we're trying to go? So that's what takes discipline, is the things that are not urgent, the things that are not landing in your inbox. That work is hard. I think for anybody that's transitioning from an individual contributor type of role, even a leader of people, I've had many operational roles with HRG, and most of your job is consumed, helping people get back out into the organization and do things. And in this role, if I were
time.
And absolutely. Yeah, we're absolutely an organization where that matters. Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the opportunities you had that you jumped at to experience HRG in different markets and different geographies, which translates to you moved.
I did.
You relocated. Say more about that.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you that it was completely well thought out and intentional, but in some cases it was to follow some type of a personal initiative. In other instances, it was just an opportunity to take another step, to learn something different. But we do have, I think, a real challenge. I'll speak for our industry, but I would imagine it's similar in other places where people have gotten much more comfortable with either these remote types of work engagements, which they can work from anywhere, or they plant roots and they want every opportunity to be, basically from the same position. And I just think that having the willingness to try something different, even if it's not where your ultimate career goal is taking you, but if it just forces you out of that routine or that comfort zone that you've built up. Maybe you've become kind of a master of what it is that you do on a daily basis. You're a rock star. Well, you might move over here and you might find out that it's a lot different to still be able to operate at that level because the competition is more challenging. The market may not be as ripe with opportunities as where you might have happened to land by good fortune. So putting yourself in those places where there is the likelihood of friction is ultimately going to help you along the way, whether that's where you land and you're really happy to just become an expert in that role, or if you want to continue to grow or along that growth path. So anybody that is part of an organization, if you're looking to have a long career inside of an organization, and I certainly don't think most people are out expecting that their career is going to go 30 years inside of the same company. And
a company shouldn't expect that.
Absolutely not.
We should do everything to want people to want that, but
right.
We shouldn't expect it.
I guess the point is look up look over. In some cases, you may even have to look down, over, and back up to get where you're trying to go. But the longer you wait to start to make those moves, the less likely it becomes. And not all these opportunities are just going to present themselves to you immediately. You're going to have to go in search of them.
Love that. Be willing to take some chances.
Yes.
What is it when you're not in the grind of leadership? What do you like to do?
Oh, wow. Travel, eat.
What's your favorite kind of food?
All of it. Wow. I had never been to Europe before last year and made an Italy trip with my family. And now I can't wait to go back.
Oh, great.
So love sports, don't participate as much as a competitor anymore, but still like to be active. And I just really value, going back to our conversation at the start, I just really value some of the relationships that I have. I've got friends that I've been around since I was a teenager or even younger. And those people are just really important to me, and being able to spend time with them and we kind of coach each other. They're all successful in different ways, and being able to draw upon the network of people that, they know you, they can call you out on stuff, and they're also heavily invested in your success. So I just couldn't be more fortunate to have the support system that I've been really cultivating for all these years. And just being able to spend time with those people is probably my favorite thing to do.
Say a little more about the support system and how important that is when you reach the very top. And talk about how important that support system is.
Yeah. So when you hear people say it is lonely at the top, it can be. It certainly can be. I think a lot of people maybe interpret that as, I can't let people behind. You talked about going behind the curtain, right? A lot of people may not want to do that, particularly at work in their career. They don't want to project out, some of those things that are a little messy. So I believe that if you can't do that in all aspects at work, it becomes really, really important for you to be able to find a group, whether it's your partner, whether it's a friend group, whether it's a peer group, like a Vistage or like a CEO group that, can just get together and feel comfortable sharing things, because most people can't relate to what some of the pressures of, just they may seem small business decisions, but just how we are caring not just for the 400 employees that we have at HRG, but also their families. So it's a lot of responsibility. I can remember, spending time with other leaders during the pandemic, and I could just see the weight that all of those people were feeling. And, I really was grateful for the opportunity to be part of something like that, because, sitting and second guessing things by yourself is just a really lonely place to be. So I try to make friends with people, in my industry that are in similar roles. Just met a new person for coffee yesterday morning. It was wonderful. Somebody that I'd never met in a very similar role, similar industry to me. So I'd encourage anybody that is, even early in your career, not even at, a senior leadership level, to, start to develop some peers outside of your workplace. Because you just may be looking at something one way, and you go talk to them and they'll say, "What are you talking about? That's awesome. I can't believe that, you have access to that when you may be looking at it, through a different lens. So just that networking, and it's not just how many people do you have following you on LinkedIn, right? It's how many people can you pick up the phone and say, can we get coffee next week? Can I talk to you for 15 minutes? Here's what it's about. Those are gold.
Yeah, that's the value. And realizing that there's a value in having industry specific support, and there's value in having industry agnostic, because the challenges of business flow across all industries. And then there are things that you can learn within really industry specific challenges from industry peers. But the business decisions, the people decisions, structure, scaling, there are things that transcend industry. And you never know what someone else has been through or contemplated, or how much you're helping someone else by having them help you. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me? All right, there's a twist.
Yeah, didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one thing that surprised you about stepping into that chair that you're in right now as the interviewer or as the host?
I'm really uncomfortable in this space, and I didn't think I would be as uncomfortable as I am. So I gave a TEDx talk. I stood up in front of 2,000 people with thousands watching. I love delivering workshops. I love standing up in front of people. And I have learned very quickly that I hate microphones and I hate cameras, except for virtual coaching sessions and things like that. I really uncomfortable in this space. I love the conversations I'm having, and I'm working really hard to stay present in the conversation beyond my own nerves in this space. Like, it's just really weird for me, and I didn't expect that at all.
You made it very comfortable for me. So if you were sensing that, it didn't transition over to me at all.
Well, thank you. You're very easy to have a conversation with, and it helps that I've known you for several years. That part is helpful. So thanks. And thank you for taking time to connect and share your story. Where can people go to learn more about HRG? Let's start there.
Sure. Well, and first and foremost, I'm honored to have the opportunity to be part of this. I know it's something that's new for you, and to get that request was just a really special moment for me. So thank you for that. If people are having trouble falling asleep at night, maybe and you want to learn about what we do in the civil engineering world, maybe you have a child that's trying to struggle and figure out a career path, or even just looking for early information, you can find out more about HRG at www.hrg-inc.com. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about that is new for us is that we've just recently launched a foundation, and we are going to make scholarships available this coming spring to some graduating seniors who will be pursuing careers in STEM next fall. So if you know anybody that might benefit from that, please share that information or have them get in touch with me directly.
Awesome. And how can people get in touch with you directly?
My email, jfralick@hrg-inc.com.
And that will be in the show notes. And of course, anyone can contact me through this podcast to get that information as well. Love the foundation. Congratulations. I know it was a lot of work to put that together. I'm really excited about how you were trying to encourage STEM education and get young people into the profession. You need people. It's a great profession. There will be guaranteed jobs for young people who go into this profession right now. So go for it. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Love it.
Absolutely. That's part of that long-term vision that we talked about.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Thanks again, Jason, for going behind the curtain with me today. And I look forward to many continued conversations and having you back on the show at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
The Leadership Backstage podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.